We begin the story in a dungeon, a large area of land that has been refilled with vegetation. Hunters, the people who work in the dungeon, are dressed in armor and engaged in conversation until someone unexpectedly approaches them. To everyone's surprise, it looks like a cloaked cat with a staff and a bag dangling from behind. Although that adorable cat gives people the opportunity to see the goods he bought with him, the hunters are highly unlikely that the feline is a drug dealer. Some of the dungeon's residents are enamored with that cute cat, but others wonder what he's got in that bag. The little fellow straightens out his paws and the product turns out to be little red cherry tomatoes. Yes, it may seem a bit disappointing, but these are not your ordinary cherry tomatoes. As one of the hunter guys takes a look at those red tomatoes with his shiny eyes, he expects them to be some kind of weapon or a mysterious potion, but to his surprise, it turns out to be pathetic and ordinary tomatoes that he can buy anywhere. He throws the tomato to the peddler cat and leaves, but their dismay is short-lived as the peddler grins and summons the stupid humans, anticipating their reaction upon seeing those unremarkable cherry tomatoes. The cat mutters that these are not your typical tomatoes and reveals the characteristics that make the hunters roar. The characteristics of the cherry tomato appear to be of greater importance to the female hunters. The items turned out to be magic cherry tomatoes that increase magic by 0.01 point for 10 minutes. As the others still find it less appealing, a woman hunter screams in disbelief when she reads that these magic tomatoes dissolve 10 grams of fat just by eating them. The peddler cat further convinces the humans by telling them how impressive this magic tomato is. He alarms them and announces the selling price, which is 0.05 dungeon coins per tomato. Listening to this, the tumultuous roar from the crowd began and people started gathering to buy those tomatoes. The little fella gets astounded by the rising demand for the magic tomatoes. In no time, the cat sells out his magic tomatoes and seems as happy as ever. But then a boy asks the cat where he got all the tomatoes, asking who produced them, to which the peddler cat smirks again, telling them it's a secret, and goes on his way. The next scene is in the tomato field, where a young boy is harvesting cherry tomatoes that have just ripened. He has gathered enough tomatoes for the day, and a bunny is carrying a wheelbarrow full of them. The farmer boy then takes a break and prepares a refreshing drink of fresh tomato juice with honey, with the adorable honeybee pouring some honey into his glass as he impressively squeezes the fresh tomatoes into it. He mixes the drink upside down and gulps it. While all the other bunnies enjoy their drinks in the little carrot molds, it looks like he's living in a magical world where all mythical creatures are helping him as a farmer. In the meantime, a quest pops up in front of the boy, ordering him to share his honey water with the dungeon administrator. Reading the quest, our boy makes an annoyed face, saying that he's done with this when he finds out that there are no rewards for this quest. While hating the world, the peddler cat comes back and leaps onto the boy, cuddling with him, and calls him Sejun. Sejun becomes happy after seeing his cat Teo, who had sold out all the magic cherry tomatoes, bringing a bag full of dungeon coins. It looks like they all work together collecting those dungeon coins. Sejun adorably pats the cat and offers him to become a CEO for a day as he did an amazing job. Noticing the progress, our boy gets his hopes up high, thinking that his name will be well known in the dungeon in no time. The cat gets motivated hearing Sejun's clever thoughts, and without wasting a second, he gets back to the grind to make more money for him. On his way, Teo asks the black bunny for his weekly compensation and returns to work. Suddenly, Sejun gets reminded of something very significant that he seems to have forgotten. He picks up a rock and marks something on the wall. The wall is filled with marks that show that Sejun is keeping a record of something. He smiles and says that it's been 50 days in the dungeon before we dive deeper into the story. It has revealed to us that San Park is a farmer. He has been trapped in this dungeon that he stumbled into 50 days ago and had not escaped since then. After this, the farmer boy returns to work, heading to the tomato field where the bunnies seem to work. The next scene flashes back to 10 years ago in Seoul, unfolding how it all started. One fine day, a black 99 Street story tower appears out of nowhere in the downtown city of Gangnam. Not only that, 100 such towers have appeared in different cities around the world. This alarming situation occurred not only in Seoul, but in all parts of the world. They discovered only one thing while investigating the towers that had enclosed dungeons inside them in each country. All the towers were 990 meters high. They were highly durable and resistant to nuclear bombs. Then all of a sudden, people started to walk out of the dungeons through the—
If you liked this episode, then don't forget to drop a like and subscribe. The next episode of this manhwa will be released once this part reaches 1,000 views or 5 comments requesting the next part.
Their walls. This was another miracle that gained attention all over the country. The news reporters were flummoxed by this splendor and started questioning those who had come out of the dungeons. One of the boys that appeared through the walls revealed that he got sucked into the black hole and found himself on the floor of the dungeon after waking up. This news spreads like wildfire as the people who recently went missing turned out to have vanished from the black hole into the dungeon. The people who were sucked by the wormhole and left the dungeons through their walls are known as the first awakened. Moreover, the missing people were found in dungeons all across the globe. We also get to know that the 100 dungeons that have appeared are all connected. As people enter these dungeons, they awaken on the first floor and are assigned to work either as a warrior or a wizard, and to their surprise, unexpectedly, they receive a reward. It doesn't end here. Even after they finish a task or advance a floor, the child shows off a golden, shiny ticket he is carrying while revealing all the dungeon secrets. When the reporter inquires about the ticket out of curiosity, the boy responds that those who have already experienced awakening, like him, are free to enter and exit the dungeons. However, for ordinary people to enter the dungeon, they need this ticket as an entry pass. But the reporters are left in utter confusion and ask him if people will buy this ticket just to walk into this terrifying dungeon full of monsters. To settle this mystery, one of the girls who also came back from the dungeons unexpectedly opens a box, and the 100 of coins start falling like a cascade. She reveals that while the purpose of the dungeons remains a mystery, one thing is for sure: moving up in dungeons is lucrative. I mean, who wouldn't want that ticket now? The Awakened Association announced a drastic increase in the black dungeon tickets, moving from 150 million to 200 million, one that was to begin next week. 100 of people signed up for this ticket, waiting to purchase it and enter the dungeons before the price increases. As a lady at the checkout watches the news, she is stunned by the ticket prices, as the world seems to be going out of control for that ticket, risking their lives to go into the dungeons. The lady seems to share her thoughts with this young boy at the counter, who turns out to be our guy Sarah, who completely thinks the opposite. When he leaves the grocery store with a bag of vegetables, he looks at his balance after paying his rent and student loans. He also appears to be saving money for the black dungeon ticket, having saved up to $12 million, but he appears disheartened because prices could increase at any time and he won't be able to afford it. Our boy looks at the black tower as the sun sets as he strolls through the streets, wondering if he would ever get the opportunity to enter the dungeon. He then feels more motivated and considers methods to cut costs, just like he did when he purchased these green vegetables at a discount. His thoughts get wilder when he thinks of growing his own vegetables, taking inspiration from her favorite girl idol, Sarah of the Moonlight Lovers, who is a brand ambassador of the Smart Garden brand. Sejun gets excited, thinking if he saves enough money to buy a ticket, things will certainly work out and he will be able to conquer the dungeons. Let's be real, money can make us delusional and we start daydreaming about the weirdest of things. Just like Sejun, who thought of proposing to his favorite girl group member Sarah after conquering the dungeons. But his freaky thoughts are interrupted by a black hole that starts to appear behind him. The hole keeps getting bigger, and Sane's daydream bubbles are busted when he looks back. Instead of being petrified, he is flaring with happiness as the black hole tries to—
If you liked this episode, then don't forget to drop a like and subscribe. The next episode of this manhwa will be released once this part reaches 1,000 views or 5 comments requesting the next part.
Suck him in. He's all fired up and decides to dedicate his life to climbing that dungeon, but his dreams begin to shatter when the hole begins to disappear without any thought. Our guy runs toward the black hole with all he's got and invites himself into the dungeon. He couldn't miss that lifetime opportunity and pitched himself in the hole. After that, he stumbles into the dungeon on his face, thinking thinking of a beautiful place when he opens his eyes decorated with fancy chandeliers, marble floors, or equipment. Sane looked around with extreme happiness, only to find a big empty pit he'd fallen into that looked nothing like he had imagined. He cries out in disbelief and doubts if he is in the right place, but nothing can be undone. Our poor guy is once again hit by reality as he enters the dungeon. A crystal ball starts to glow, detecting signs of abnormal activity inside the dungeon. The dungeon administrator, who turns out to be a black dragon, goes out to find the cause. The next scenes take us to the new sensation, the awakenings that have taken over the internet as people interview them about the experience and ask them about the inside structure of the Black Tower. A girl describes the first floor of the dungeon as a dazzling palace and lets out that there are many stores where they can buy items like potions to use in the dungeons. Meanwhile, another boy reveals that the training center is the highlight of the first floor. Because it's a survival skill, they need to get stronger to fight monsters. On the second floor, Sejun snaps out of his moment of contemplation as he had heard about it on the internet, but none of them seems to exist in that dungeon. Realization hits him when he sits there after spending hours searching every corner for exit stores to buy items or training centers, but nothing exists. Our poor boy even shouts crying for help and thinks he is lost, but no one comes to his rescue as he thinks about it. His morning alarms go off. Sane had spent a day in a dungeon without cell service, yet his stomach starts growling and he looks over the veggies he had bought earlier. The bag had 1 bottle of water, 27 cherry tomatoes, 7 sweet potatoes, 10 green onions, and an apple after eating an apple which seemed a delight for breakfast, and a raw sweet potato that tasted extremely sweet and crunchy. Our boy fills his stomach with what he calls a decent meal. After the meal, he lays down with literally nothing to do in the dungeon. He thinks to himself that he cannot stay here for longer. He has to find a way before he runs out of food and starves to death. San even thinks of turning into a dry mummy if he doesn't get rescued on time, but the bad thoughts couldn't overpower his optimistic energy, and he starts to think of ways to survive in the dungeon by any means.
Hey, quick fact, 97% of you watching aren't subscribed. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It's free, helps the channel grow, and keeps you in the loop. Thanks for your support.